Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Recovery Snack by Recovery Concepts. I'm Chris. Hope everybody's well this morning. Thank y'all for joining. Saturday, May 9th. Here we go. Here we go. Hope y'all had a productive Friday and got a lot going on for the weekend, or nothing going on for the weekend. That's also kind of fun, too. I got all kinds of stuff done yesterday, all kinds of errands. I was all over Roanoke and Botetourt and Salem and um, trying to get some business taken care of and get caught up on a couple of things. Got a lot of moving pieces going on in my life right now, which it's mostly a blessing for sure. You know, you get cleaned up, man, or I got cleaned up, got some recovery in it or whatever. It's amazing what all pops up in my life these days as opportunities. And some of these things, all of these things consume a certain amount of time or whatever. I have to be mindful of remembering to keep my time and my little bubble, especially my recovery time or whatever, segregated from all these things, man, to ensure that I still have that time, because that is the base, that is the root, that is the foundation, if you will, of everything else. If I get that out of whack, all things above it, suffer. So I got to keep it solid as best I can. But I do enjoy having the blessings, and it's a good kind of busy. Yesterday was a good kind of busy. So hopefully today will be a little bit more around the house busy stuff and a little bit more rest. Might even sneak a nap up in there. We'll see what happens. But anyway, let's get after it here. Let's see what we got going on. May 9th. For a quote from Solon, Solon, Solon. In giving advice, seek to help, not to please your friend. Seek to help, not to please your friend. This is a lot like yesterday, or seems to be tethered to it somehow. We all have a lot to learn in life, and it's difficult enough to figure things out without getting bad advice from others. When we ask for help from someone, we hope to learn something helpful. Yet all too often, we learn nothing. Instead, we hear something meant to make us feel good. For example, I think you're doing fine. Instead of being really helpful, this statement leaves us feeling like there's no help available. When friends ask for us for advice, we should tell them what we know and how we know it. When I had that kind of problem, here's how I fixed it and how it's worked out. Or I can tell you one thing I did that turned out to be a mistake. We don't tell other people what they should do, but we can share our experience, strength, and hope. There's the program. Prayer for the day. Higher power, help me be a good friend to others, willing to share what I know when someone asks for my advice. Use me to help others by sharing my experience, strength, and hope. Today's action. Today I will walk with a program filled. Today I will walk. Today I will talk with a program friend about the difference between helpful sharing and advice giving, which is not that helpful. So yeah, on the receiving end of that, I'm just glad I'm able to ask for help today. That used to be, I used to stigmatize myself extremely. It used to be very difficult for me to ask for help. It's not my favorite thing today. That's for sure. I'm a solver. I like to figure things out. And I've always been, kind of self-motivated, so to say, man. I was taught when I was young, the cavalry ain't coming, you got your family and your blood and everything or whatever, but if you want to go get something, you want to figure it out, or you're going to have to get after it. You're going to have to go. Your mistakes will show themselves along the way. And I had one particular grandmother that used to say, pride yourself in making different mistakes. Make different mistakes. If you continue to make the same mistake, addiction. If you continue to make the same mistake over and over, you got to look at that mistake really closely. But if you're making mistakes, but they're new, you're growing, you're succeeding, you're moving forward, you're learning a lot, you're getting it done. That's the trick. If we're not making any mistakes, in my opinion, we're not moving. We're sedentary. We're just sitting, and that won't last for long as a successful planner. So it seems seems to me and been my experience. So, having said that, I'm glad that I've reached a point in my recovery where it's okay for me to ask, even if it's not my favorite thing to do. As far as giving advice, I have to watch that. One of my primary things back in the day used to be to interject myself into things that had no business at all with me being in it. It was none of my business. I lived in toxicity, turmoil. I tried to stir it up. Sometimes I'd stand in the middle of the problems, and if it got rough, I'd leave. But I was always stirring and churning, and I'm not proud of that, but that is the way it is. And I think more about me now, looking back, that was a way for me to not be spotted, if you will. If there was a bunch of shit and chaos going on, it's harder to see me. It was harder to see me and my problems, and I believe that had a lot to do with that. And I also like to concentrate on other people's issues because it kept me away from mine. It kept me occupied and dealing with something else. I didn't have to deal with my problems, which I knew were there. They come and would haunt me when I was alone. I work in recovery now, have for a while, in a 106-bed facility, so it's no small joint. And I get asked a lot of questions. Of importance too. I have to determine what exactly is going on too. Because a lot of times when somebody comes and talks to me, and I think I've shared this before, whatever, a lot of times, and not just in recovery, but people in general, my wife will come home to me and need to vent. For the longest time, I started firing solutions. Here's what, have you tried this? Have you thought about it this way? Have you thought about it that way? Sometimes she would get a little pissy with me, get mad. And rightfully so, because I misinterpreted. She wasn't asking me any questions. She just needed to be heard. There's a difference between people just needing to talk and work it out and get it out of themselves, and a question when they ask you, what do you think, type thing. So I'm intentional these days. If I'm confused about what's going on, and I fail at it, but I fail at it less than I used to, I will get intentional and ask, are you asking me a question? Or do you just need to talk? Because I can listen. I can do both, whatever you need me to do. Working in recovery, I get a lot of questions. And I love how it talks about, I keep myself in my lane the best I can. I don't have anything to share about recovery, man, beyond the vast majority and swath of mistakes that I made over years and years, trying to get this thing figured out when, they told me the answer in the beginning, but it was the forest for the trees, and I didn't like their answer. I was trying to figure out my answer. But I have no problem sharing my experience, strength, and hope. But I do it exactly as this book just stated. I do it as suggestions. I don't tell nobody what to do, because that's usually not, even if they ask me, what would you do? What should you do? I tell them what I did, how that worked out. If it was a mistake, as the book talks about, I would tell them, then I did this and how that worked out. And you decide which path, you want to take. But I really refrain from telling anybody you should, because my people don't typically like rules that much. And even if they're beat down to the point of asking for advice or whatever, I always make it in a suggestive manner, not I think you should comes across some points in times from a critical stance. It can be received, especially from a person in early recovery, in a critical stance. It sounding critical as opposed to suggestions. For me, anyway, in my world, I believe that they have the option at that point to ponder it, because recovery is not me. People helped me, but nobody fixed me. Recovery was about me, exposing myself to different ideas and then activating them in my life. Recovery wasn't about the Calvary coming and saving me and just me living in a bubble, in a cushioned bubble the rest of my life because somebody come along. I had to figure out how to do this. And I don't put myself in a position in the recovery, at work, where I'm around people or the recovery community around here, where I do somebody's recovery for them. That does nothing for them. There's another book talks about it. Teach a man to fish or give a man a fish. There's two different ways that'll turn out, in my opinion, over time. I had to figure out how to initiate, maintain, and continue recovery in my life. I did not need somebody to come and do it for me. You know, there's clinical terms for such things. So I just try to expose people to all the mistakes that I made and the results of it, of what I do when I'm asked. And then if I found success in something, in a situation with a different action that I applied to a situation, I share that as well. I share both sides, because everything that did or did not work for me may be different for the individual that I'm talking to. People have to find their path, their road. Um, but by the grace of my God, I'm still here to be able to at least give that, um, that the suggestions. I'm alive and able to convey them to others today. And for that, I am grateful, because it could have been so different. I appreciate y'all joining me today. Y'all know the spiel. Please subscribe, share, like, tell a friend. Most explicitly, if you could share it on social media, that would be awesome. I'm just trying to get the base build up out there. I'm glad you're here. Don't get it wrong. Thank you much for joining. And Lord willing, y'all come on back. We'll make a Sunday out of it. Y'all have a great Saturday. Take care. Take good care of yourself. Stay safe, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.